Hey guys, it's your host, Bailey Cartwright. Welcome to the Stronger Scars podcast, where I invite others to dive deep into the ups and downs of physical and mental scars. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Stronger Scars podcast. We have a long-time guest on again. Today we're joined with Chloe Boice, who was my roommate in college, my best friend. She's at my wedding. We have been through a lot together, and we're going to talk about identity crisis today. So everyone, this is Chloe. Chloe, go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Chloe, and yes, I was a soccer player, of course. Played with Bailey at Notre Dame, but I just going back for a quick recap. I, started playing soccer super young. Got really competitive pretty fast, and got to high school. Everything was going great. Ended up committing my sophomore year to Notre Dame, which was awesome and dream come true. Around like a few months later, I tore my first ACL. So that was a crazy, just shot in the face. I mean, I think your first major injury is a lot to deal with, and it takes a toll on you mentally. You just have no idea what to expect. So long story short, got over that one. Um, Played for a few months in my senior season, senior year of high school, and then tore my other ACL. So that was obviously, another setback. And unfortunately, um, happened twice, and I didn't have much time to play again. But going into freshman year of college, I was still recovering. And then, was hurting again freshman year, didn't really understand why. Found out both my labrums were torn. So I had surgeries for both of those my spring of my freshman year. And that was essentially like a year and a half recovery for both of them. But I really didn't end up fully recovering and getting back because I ended up medically retiring my beginning of my junior season at Notre Dame. And that's when me and Bailey first started living together. So we were both going through it that year, but for different reasons. But she kind of saw me. She was there for me when the identity of soccer just was over for me, and we're trying to figure out,
I'm
trying to
already
figure out.
crying.
It's okay. We're just trying to figure out like what's next, figure it out. So I'm very grateful and blessed that I had Bailey, and I think we'll get into that more. But yeah, so it's been, I think, around 3 years now, 2.5, 3 years without playing soccer. And yeah, take you on for that journey, how we got there.
So before we get into like when you retired and everything, I want to go back because I feel like a lot of times we neglect talking about dealing with injuries in high school and how like I feel like that is almost an equally as hard identity crisis to losing the sport because you're so young, like you're reliant on other people still. So I just feel like that is something I don't have an experience in, so I don't ever really talk about. So I'm just kind of curious, like when you were so young and you got injured for the first time, what was that kind of, because like I'm imagining you felt that same feeling of like loss, like you were probably thinking like, oh my gosh, am I actually going to get to go to Notre Dame, like two ACLs? What was that kind of like with it going on in high school?
Yeah, I think it was interesting because I was on a pretty close knit team for my club team. And when I tore my first ACL, I was pretty much the first person to have like a major long term injury on our team. So I didn't feel like I necessarily had someone like that I was seeing, a few times a week to kind of lean on. So it was a lot of figuring it out myself, but it's so different than college because I wasn't needing to go to practice every
That's what I was
single
gonna
day.
ask. Did you go to practice when you were hurt?
No,
Mm,
no, not really. Like I pretty much was I think it totally depends on your coach. But I was just going to PT. Like I didn't see the girls really very often. I was going to games um when I could, but it wasn't anything like mandatory. But yeah, it's just totally different. I mean, I had to go find a PT. Which was totally different, but I actually loved loved my physical therapist, and I had two different ones for both my knees, and you can tell the difference between not now because my knees are great and they're not getting torn anytime soon, but I think it would be huge in high school to find a really solid PT that knows what they're doing. And luckily, ACLs are very common now, so it shouldn't be too much of a difference. But it was more, I was so eager to get back after both of them. And at the end of the day, like, I know everyone says this, but like, what's like one more month of recovery to like not tear it again? And like, luckily, I didn't tear mine twice, but you got to take your time. Everybody's different. Like, you can't compare yourself to someone who came back in 6, 7 months from an ACL and it takes you maybe 8 to 10 months. Like, everyone's different. Your body is, now that we're old and we are starting to feel the repercussions of putting our bodies through that, it's so not worth it at all. Like, take your time. But high school is definitely different. I think just the first injury in general
mhm,
sucks,
mhm.
just because you have no idea what you're doing. The second ACL sucked. Like calling our Notre Dame coach after the second ACL, like since I had no idea if I was gonna be still on the team or not. I mean, I didn't sign anything. They had every right. So luckily, they saw had faith in me getting back and I kept my scholarship, but I was super nervous calling our coach that day, just being like, listen, out for another year. But um it was interesting going into that recovery just because towards the end I was getting into to college. And
Mhm,
it was like, I'm trying to prep as much as I can, do as much as I can to be able to play right when I walk on campus.
mhm,
But unfortunately, I had to wait, I think, like 2 months and then I was back. But then I probably played well for 1 month and then started feeling it in
mhm.
my hips. So, yeah, I mean, it was just for me, my whole journey was injury injury with little sprinkles of soccer for like 4 or 5 years.
Just a little bit,
That's all
not
it
too
was.
much.
Yeah. Like 1 month every once in a while. Yeah.
Okay, so do you think that because someone asked me on the last podcast, she asked me like, how did you like handle the unknown? Like you were just constantly getting hurt. So like how did you in a sense prepare for that? And I think you're a great example of like you were never catching a break. Like when you were finally getting healthy, it hits you again. So like taking that into perspective with kind of like this identity as like the injured girl, which I know we both felt a lot. um, do you think that makes it easier or harder that you're constantly hurt? So it just kind of built into it's into your brain, like this is how I am, this is how I have to react, or do you think it makes it harder because that's how everyone views you, just constantly as the injured girl?
Yeah. I think it's both. I think I think it got so routine that it was a little bit weirder being able to play and stuff, and I don't know if you feel the same. You were in college, you were very sporadic with how you were playing too. So we were just on the sidelines for so long. I mean, our role was cheerleader, right? And so I think for me it I did love the girls on both my teams. I'm a pretty outgoing personality. Like, I'm gonna be a great cheerleader for everyone, and I'm gonna be loud as hell on the sidelines during the game. Um, so I think in that scenario, it felt routine, but also, yeah, I didn't step on the field one time at Notre Dame,
Like,
so it's just like, "Oh, you played soccer at Notre Dame? Did I play? Not
I know
really." But yeah,
sometimes
I
like
was
people sometimes I'm proud, like, I hope you are proud that of getting there and, like,
yeah,
you didn't handpicked the challenges that you faced, but sometimes I feel weird saying to people, like, "Yeah, I'm a Notre Dame soccer alum," because I think I played 4 games, and, like,
yeah,
it sucks because, like, if the cards were different for both of us, I 1000% believe we would have played and contributed, but we just couldn't.
mhm,
But I have thoughts. Okay, first, being a cheerleader. This is something that I have been very open about with people. I also hope that people have realized that I've been very open in my apologies about this and that I have learned from it. Like, I want this to be an example for other people. I really struggled with the whole cheerleader mentality. Like, I was, woe is me. If I'm not out there, I don't really care. And that was probably one of the biggest growth segments that I've had throughout my injury. Like, Chloe was just always good at it. And I'm just kind of curious if you can give a little background on that mindset because it's not easy to get to, at least for me, and I think a lot of other people.
I think that's it's hard because I mean, we were going to practice every day expected to be in the best attitude, do do anything and everything needed for practice if they need us for anything. Um, at the same time, get some of our get some rehab in. We were able to do rehab during practice, which was awesome. So I think I think it's interesting because I'm a person that wears my emotions on my sleeve. So I don't know necessarily why I would be able to, put that face on when it wasn't real. Um, but I don't know. I think that we, I always wanted to support the girls in any way, and I wanted us to be good, be a good team. Um, I like making people laugh. I like being loud. I mean, that was my personality on the field too. I was a pretty loud um, person. So I think that that helped as well as just like faking it till you make it, I guess. But that's not saying that that happened every day because I have days, obviously, we all had days where it was just like, this is BS. I want to I wanna leave, like, I wanna quit. Everyone has those days, so I think it's, understanding that your role on the team has changed for the time being, um, and just do your best to support your girls
Mhm,
because they're going through it in a different way than you are,
mhm,
um, but if you can keep that in mind, I mean, just keeping a positive attitude in mind as much as possible, whether you like it or not, is probably the key. But I
mhm.
don't know. I don't know why I was like that.
You were very good at it, and I think too, like, I think I started to realize, like, end of junior year, going into senior year, like, being negative isn't gonna make me heal. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like once I kinda grasped that and, like, realized that I don't wanna leave my mark here as, like, being a negative Nelly all the time.
We had every right to be negative Nellies.
Yes. And I think it's okay to acknowledge that, like, I'm so like that's one of the things that really stressed me out when we were there. It's just like I felt like I couldn't just be upset sometimes. and I
Yeah,
wanted to
I
be
agree.
upset. I was mad. I was upset. Like, we went through rehab just to get told something's wrong again. It's not fun.
At all. No, but I agree, and I think that's also just probably coaching as well, like understanding that, not making it a requirement to be smiling like 100% of the time. And recognizing that being injured takes a toll on your mental health and it's hard and it's harder to, I think, get out of it than not. Like it's so easy to just get down and be sad because that's kind of how you are. I mean, you're the sport you love to play got taken away from you. Like in some scenarios, you can barely walk. In some scenarios, you can't run. So it's hard. It takes a toll on like every single aspect of your life. Um, and so, yeah, like having people around you to, I mean, we made the most of our injured squad, I think, and we had a fun squad. It was us two always. We had other people on
People would
rotation.
come in and out. We
Yeah, yeah, we saw it all. Like we saw it all, but I mean, we were in it the entire time. So, I mean, that's what like I don't think we had any real reason to get close, and we got like so close because we were together all the time because we were injured, going to get rehab, sitting on the sidelines, like it was nonstop, and so we were able to really connect because of that. And other people didn't really understand what goes on. If you don't have a long term injury, I don't think you really understand like what goes on and what it takes. Um, until it happens. And I don't wish that on anyone, but it's just, we had a level of connection that I think we couldn't really get with other people.
Mhm. Well, I think that's kind of important to mention. So, I think a part of why a lot of people struggle with the whole identity part of their injury is because you don't play, obviously, and you're not around the team as much. So, like, for example, when the team would go away for weekends, I feel like now I can speak about this. But, like, you have to make the most of it. Like, that is when me and Chloe started to get really close because we would be stuck there alone. We'd be like, "Oh, do you wanna go to the tailgates? Do you wanna go do this or this? Do you wanna have" you know what I mean? So, like, that time, you have to be intentional with it because, yes, people on the team are on a trip and they're getting closer, but you're back home and you're getting closer with your best friend and then also people who are new to this. There's freshmen who are hurt or didn't get to travel. Take them under your wing, show them a good time, and figure out other ways to connect with the people who you spend so much time with.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we started doing that more later. Like we started figuring that out more later. But yeah, I think you especially did a good job um, being crutches for some people, especially freshmen.
Mhm,
Um, who like really have no idea what's going on and um we had some dinners with some freshmen which was nice, but yeah, I think especially if you're long term and having those people to lean on when you're injured is like the biggest thing, making those relationships and again just having the like similarity of being injured. I mean, that's what's gonna get you through it, especially in college when you're probably not around your parents. Maybe your coaching staff isn't the most supportive. Just having your teammates around you and friends just, getting you through it.
mhm. I'm having flashbacks. I had shout out Ward because Ward was really good at it too, but I'm having flashbacks of being at her house before one of the football games, and we were all there, and it was just like that was like a moment for us to have something that the people who play can't take away from us. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And, like,
Oh yeah.
those are the memories I'll always remember, or, like, I remember we had the one, like, very low-key darty at Nick's apartment, and,
Yeah. When it's
those are
like
the moments
frozen.
those are the moments I remember from college, they really are.
I think Nick's place served us well. And
Shout out
that
college.
year, yeah, and that year, we did a lot with the injured squad, which was awesome. We did a lot with um, the girls that had to stay back, and That was the best year
Mhm.
ever,
That was and then it
ever.
got cut short 'cause of
Yeah, that would have been the best year of college.
Mhm. Okay, so I wanna back it up a little. You said something when you were talking about, um, going into college and, like, people like, you were just getting sprinkles of playing time well, not playing time in games, but you were playing
Practice.
yeah, like, you're playing here and there. And this is something that always really bothered me about being an injured player coming back to play. Why are people shocked when you're good? I'm at Notre Dame just like you are. Like,
Yeah,
obviously, I know what I'm doing. And I would get so freaking annoyed when people, like, just treat me like a normal player. Like, let's clap that I'm back from this shit show that it was. But, like, just treat me like a normal player. Like, why are we all surprised that I know what I'm doing?
yeah,
And I think that's something that a lot of people who come back from injury face because I don't know, like, it really bothered me that, like, people were surprised that, like, 1, your body's letting you play and that, like, you're getting into tackles, you're doing this good, you're doing that good. And then, like, when you would like, I remember one scrimmage, I scored, like, 2 goals, and everyone's like, "Oh my goodness, like, I didn't know." Like, I'm like, "What?" Like, I got here the same way you did.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's interesting. I think there's 2 aspects to that because, yeah, like, I mean, we were playing at Notre Dame, like, we got we were there for a reason. We got recruited the same, so I think that's one thing, but even maybe, like, I didn't come in playing, like, no one really obviously, there are a few girls that I had known prior that had seen me play, but otherwise, like and you played for a few months your freshman year, like, they didn't no one really saw a ton of you, so they didn't really understand, like, the level you can play or, your skill level, so I think that yeah, everyone's just shocked when you come back and, like, you make a solid pass, they're like, "Whoa, you know how to play
I
soccer?"
remember
Like
you were playing so well, and, like, I remember everyone being like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know Chloe was that good." And I'm like, "She was hurt,
like
she wasn't dead." Like
yeah, literally. But I also think that and I think this is kinda why it led to my retirement, but I think that you do have a buffer period where you need to figure it out. Like, you have been out of the game, let's just say, like, a year. Like, you're gonna have your amazing days and you're gonna feel awesome, but it also is going to take some time for you to feel like the player you were before, and that's important, and I think that too gets a lot of people down because you think that you should be, once you can run and once you can kick the ball, that you should be back to where you were. That's just not the case. I mean, it takes time to get your touch back in soccer or whatever sport you're playing. It takes time to just remember those skills and get them down pat. So, with more injury, with with injury number 2, 3, 4, I think it takes a little bit longer after to like get your feet under you. Maybe not even not maybe you're playing great right when you start, but just to feel like the player you were before. It takes time. So don't get down on yourself if you are struggling month 1 month in from you playing again and you're just not feeling yourself, that will come. But it does take some time.
when you were saying that, it just instantly made me think of Rachel, which Rachel is a listener of the podcast, so she will be listening to this. And I just feel like I know I personally owe her a ton, and I think you do too, of just like she listened and she wanted to help us stay on that path. And like she pushed us when she knew she could, but she also didn't make us feel uncomfortable. She didn't like make us feel like we had to do it. She didn't want to like I don't know. She just I feel like having a support staff who one takes the time to listen to what you need and what will be best for you and like also validate your feelings. I think that can make all the difference. And I feel like in Rachel we had that around us.
Yeah. Shout out Rachel. Miss you so much. But I think that she was like our team mom. Like she was our mom that we all lacked being away from our moms.
Mhm.
And so I think that like she got to know us, especially the injured squad that was there all the time. She got to know us super well. She listened. Like she would back us up when maybe we didn't want to practice or we didn't want to do something, and other staff was pushing it. Like, she would back us up. She would push us to make sure that we were recovering and to make sure that we were getting out of our recovery that, we could, everything. But at the same time, she wouldn't push us over the edge. You just have those days sometimes, even if like our mental health was just in the trash can. She would just be like, "I'm gonna send you home." Yeah, she's like, I like you don't need to be here. Like I'm gonna send you home. Like I love you. I hope you're okay. You don't need to be here. And it
Mhm.
was awesome because you just felt like you were supported. And it felt like our injury kind of took precedent over soccer, which in some scenarios it felt it was the opposite.
Mhm.
Um, and so, and we went through, I mean, so many trainers, so many like strength coaches.
Mhm.
And so I think Rachel really understood
Yeah.
us and helped us through it.
Mhm. Alright, let's fast forward a little. I wanna talk about the end of your soccer career. So I will say, I wanna hype Chloe up a little bit because you just handled your injury very well. Like, I feel like when people would ask me how I'm doing, I would fly off the handle. But you were just always, like, very calm, and you just kinda went about your business, and I always admired that about you because, again, like, that's just not kind of how I felt I was, and I think that speaks volumes of how your, like, retiring went and how everything kind of came to a close for you. So, I know we talked about this way back, like, a year or so, 2 years ago about you medically retiring, but for those who haven't listened, just a refresh, kind of walk us through what that was like.
Yeah. So I, so going into junior, like summer, I was kind of close coming back. Like I was practicing, I think 100, not
Mhm.
100%. I was practicing like maybe 70, 75% of doing everything. I forget.
You were
Do you
doing a decent
remember?
amount, yeah.
Yeah. I just remember like doing during a fitness test or something. I was like, sorry, I have to stop. And that's all I remember. So I probably wasn't 100%. Um, but yeah, I mean, that was just it was a whole mixture of stuff because that was us coming back from COVID for the first time. That was pretty stressful. I think the stress we were in during COVID just to practice was crazy. And
Mhm.
I think that like kind of pushed me over the edge. Obviously, there's one call in particular where I remember losing it. And then I think the next day I retired.
That was
Like
quick.
yeah, very soon after, I was like, "What am I doing?" Like, I think I was playing into the whole COVID situation maybe more than I really realized because to me, it wasn't worth going to play on the field at the time. And that's when I was like, "Is it because of COVID or is it because like I don't want to be out there anymore?" And I think it was because I didn't want to be out there anymore. Like it wasn't worth it to me. So I think I had that realization relatively quick, and I was like, I'm out. I'm done. Like this is not serving any purpose to me anymore. I didn't have the best relationships with some people on the team, and um, didn't think I was I don't know get an opportunity really to play in general. Um, so it was time for me to go, and I was okay with it. It was definitely hard,
Mhm.
and going through it, I was pretty in denial about my feelings. And now looking back, I can attest that I was going through it because of retiring and because soccer like left my life and we were playing for since we were 6 years old, like and got very competitive very quick. And everyone goes through that. So everyone knows, what I'm talking about, but it was just a journey. It was a journey. And we can talk about that more later. But yeah, I had Bailey right there next to me the whole time. We were going through it, and made us way closer too.
Okay. So I remember when this was all going down, and after the fact of actually retiring, you seemed calm, cool, and collected. Like, my girl was just like, "This is the best thing I ever did. Like, this is gonna be what's best for me." And then, I hope you don't mind me sharing this. My girl didn't
I
really
don't
leave
know.
the room much.
No.
And I honestly, I feel like I was there for you, but I definitely think I could have been more like obnoxious, like checking in on you. Like I was always annoying and coming into your room and stuff. But, like I feel like I could have been a little bit more intentional. And I wanted to share that because I think the reality of because you correct me if I'm wrong, like they recommended you medically retired, but you didn't have to, right?
Yeah, I mean,
You made the
the
decision.
second the day after the day after I found out I tore my labrums, I got called into the office to tell them that I should medically retire.
Okay, so
So,
but you still made the final choice, right?
yeah, yeah, I mean, that was, like, a year and a half later when I actually retired, but, yes, I was told that I should probably medically retire.
Yeah. Um, if you know, you know. Okay. Um, yeah. So I personally would have never quit or medically retired, and I do consider those very different things on my own. But I always had a small part of me wishing someone would tell me to just, you have to medically retire. Like, I'm not giving you a choice. Here's the paperwork. You are done playing. And your situation kind of like opened my eyes to like the power of knowing when it's not right for you, knowing when you don't want to go forward anymore, and being able to make that decision for yourself. What's your mindset behind that?
I think the biggest thing I had to realize was that I did not enjoy going there every day. And I think it's different. It's like you can love the girls and you can love the sport. Um, but I just did not want to go. That was like the worst part of my day was going to practice. And so I think that especially and I think I kind of realized that my time was up after I, I didn't realize how long my recovery was going to be and really how long it was going to take me to get back to be competitive again. Um, and I felt it was time. I think I even pushed it a little too long, to be honest. It was really time for me to be done, and I I don't know. It happened, and I obviously was questioning my decision for a lot longer after, but it was the right decision for me. It hit me one day, a realization, and I was like, why am I doing this to myself? Why
Yeah.
like why am I risking another injury? Why I'm already like I'm still pretty limited in what I can do. I never really finished my rehab. No, I'm gonna need to get double hip replacements in the near future. So, I was just like, Why am I putting my body through this?" My goal, I think, for myself was to get into college through sports, um, and my goal was completed. I didn't really have a goal to play after, um, or a want or a desire to play after. So, I was pretty content with myself on being done. I mean, it was cut 2 years short, but that's okay. So, I was it was full circle, and then COVID played a role in it too, but it just I was ready. I felt ready.
So can you walk us through, let's say, the next 6 months? You retire. From
Yeah,
my perspective, I know you were going through it, but you always kind of put on a face. From your perspective, what were those next 6 months like?
yeah. I think it was hard. I think it was hard because we couldn't really do much because of COVID after. Um, we weren't really allowed to hang out with, like, groups of people. Majority of our friends. I mean, you were still on the team,
Mm.
so majority of and that's on my end, all my friends were athletes, so I was just kinda, like, hanging out, but, I felt like it was mandatory to give my body a rest. I think I tried to go and work out, and I had some, like, few consistent but the first month, I was like, "I'm gonna eat terribly, and
Yeah.
I'm going to not work out once because my body needs it," and then once I started feeling disgusting, I was like, "Okay, I'm not gonna eat terribly anymore." Um, and then it took me a long time to get back into working out, like, post like, I think I think I started really working out a year later, a year and a half year later, probably, like, kind of consistently, which I was okay with because I also had a friend there, someone I knew pretty well that had also medically retired, and she pretty much explained that how long it took her to get back into working out, and it's really, like, not a big deal at all, and you gotta work out when you're ready and not force it. So, I think that was the biggest thing, but mentally, I was pretty in denial about how it affected my mental health. I kind of attributed the way I was feeling to other things when it was mainly because, like, part of my identity was gone. Like, I didn't know who I was without soccer, and so I think it was hard mentally, and especially being in denial. I was like, "Oh, it must be X, Y, Z, like, whatever." But, I mean, regardless, I think having Bailey and having, like, really good friends around was able to, like like, pull me out of those, like, periods, I guess, and still have fun. I mean, we had a great time living together. Um, COVID didn't treat us too well. I mean, we got along super well, and we loved hanging out. It was me, you, Willow, Nick sometimes. But,
Most
I mean, yeah, most times towards the end, but yeah, no, I think it was just I don't know what to say about it because for me, in this kind of scenario, and we could talk more about it more when we get into identity, but it just takes time, and it takes time for you to realize that, like, your identity isn't soccer or your sport, um, and then to figure out who you are.
Mhm.
It takes time, and so I think same with mental health, you just time heals and try to keep a positive mindset as much as possible to pull yourself out of it. But yeah, I think it's a whirlwind and you can't knock yourself for the way you handle it. Everyone's gonna handle it very differently. And Bailey's kind of going through it now, figuring it out. So um everyone's different and it's gonna be okay.
Yeah. Where are you, like, how long do you like, are you on the other side now? Do you feel
Yeah.
happy with, like, your soccer career, where you left things? Are you happy?
Yeah. I mean I'm definitely happy. I think that the biggest thing, I think senior year of college was my favorite year off the team. You don't understand how much you're missing out in college being an athlete. And I'm not saying that being an athlete sucks and you don't have a good time, but not having that responsibility and being able to have free reign to do whatever you want, I think that really helped me. And found some good friends and you don't realize how much of a bubble you're in when you're on a sports team. Like it's pretty crazy. And so I felt like I got some good perspective with that, which I was obviously in it completely my first 2 years, and so stepping back and being like, "That's how that's how I acted," or like, "That's how people" I don't know, I don't wanna say people viewed us, but
Yeah,
it was just, it was a different perspective, but I had an awesome time my senior year, and that I think really helped
Yeah.
everything. But I I don't even know the timeline that it was, but I just feel so content now. I feel like I'm content with my career. There's not really a lot for me to be super stoked and happy about, especially the final years. I think I peaked like sophomore year of high school. So I've been on the decline, and I think with every injury, I was kind of separating my identity from soccer a little bit more. So I feel like now I'm in a really good spot where it's not really my identity at all. It obviously took some time, 2.5 years, but I got to hone in on my major senior year, which I really liked, and got some really great experience under my belt, like job wise, that I would not have been able to do if I was on the team. And then it really kickstarted me, put me above others probably graduating and trying to find a job. So I think it's really just discovering other things that you have interest in and digging into those. I mean, we all worked out a ton every day, and so I think that that's a huge part of my identity. I mean, I'm just like just January 1, like really committing to health and activity, and I think that that is a major part of my identity in general, just working out and um, that kind of stuff. And so, I mean, that was 2.5 years later. I'm really starting to find what I'm enjoying, but the more stuff that you can do to figure out what you like will help you separate yourself from that identity.
Yeah, and I think just hearing that from you, someone who's been going through it for the last 2.5 years, like, if you're someone who did retire or you're just done playing, like, have some grace with yourself. I feel like the whole aftermath process can be, and, like, that's kinda what I'm going through now. It's you feel like you should be doing more, but in your head, you're like, "I don't wanna do more." And then you just kinda go back and forth with yourself, and it does really affect your mental health of just, like, not being on a schedule, not feeling like you're a part of anything, not fitting in. And I think have some grace with yourself because like Chloe said, like she just now is starting to get into the groove of her new life. And like it took her 2.5 years.
Well, how are you doing with it? How many months or days are you out?
Okay, I want to back it up. Let's talk a little bit about me. So
Yes, we're flipping the switch right now.
flip. Okay, so senior year, like I kind of want to paint the picture. So Chloe is a year younger than me. So she and I were living together my senior year, her junior year. Her junior year is when she retired. I was still on the team. And I had a very, very rough year, as Chloe can attest. And I think part of that, one, like not to be selfish, but Chloe leaving the team also affected me. Like she was who I leaned on at practice, who I got to do things at practice with. But for me at that point in my career, I was very gun ho on finishing what I started. So it wasn't in the cards for me to quit. I knew I was going to stick it through. Um, but I was having like not the
You
worst.
weren't you weren't you wouldn't have quit, by the way. I will
I wouldn't have.
No, you wouldn't have quit, which you said earlier that you find there's difference, so you weren't gonna quit, but continue.
So I was having like not my worst leg pain. My worst leg pain was like freshman sophomore year, but I was back into the compartment syndrome journey. I went home, saw my specialist, got tested, confirmed I had compartment syndrome. So at this point, I was in the whole limbo of do I get surgery again? This would be my fourth surgery. Do I just kinda hang out? Do I try to play even though I know I'm not gonna play because I would have to start from route 1 and things are already flowing and no one's gonna trust someone who's had 3 compartments in surgeries to play again. But I was like, "I'm playing." It's a mouthful. I was like, "I'm staying on this team, I'm finishing," and it looked very different for me. I will say the coaching staff, training staff, everyone was very helpful with if I was just having a bad day, I wasn't need to come to practice, and that was really helpful because the majority of my senior year, I was on the sidelines. I wasn't practicing, I was doing nothing,
Mhm.
and that was really
Like
hard
on crutches, on
on
crutches.
crutches. That was really hard because, 1, senior year was COVID year, like, we didn't have a full fall season, so then we had it in the spring. So kind of like in a way going into senior year, I was like, okay, like it's one fall and then I get my spring. But then my spring was taken away from me and we had a season. So I just sat at every practice, I sat at every game. Um, Usually senior year, you travel, you are on the posters, you kind of get the whole shebang. And I didn't get that. And it was tough. It was like, even though I put in a different kind of work for the past 3 years, I still was putting in work. And so I was really struggling with that. And then I ended up getting my fourth compartment syndrome surgery like a week before senior day, which we had in the spring. So then I was on crutches for senior day, and it was just kind of like, I don't know. But I was just going through it senior year. And I wasn't at peace with soccer being done. Like I wasn't. But I had 4 years of it dwindling from underneath me. Like I think sophomore year is the year where I started like the first game of the season and maybe played like 2 games, and then that was like it. And then junior year, I played against Pitt for like the last 4 minutes. But like it was all building up to soccer being done. So I was like fine with it. Not like excited, not like doing well mentally, but I was like fine with it. And then I was like, this grand idea to get an end on my own terms. Go back, you guys have heard, I went back and I played this last fall, D3 soccer. And I was healthy and I got through it, but I wasn't satisfied with like how I left things. I wanted to leave things, and like this may sound conceited, but like I wanted to leave things on a bigger mountain. Like I wasn't happy with how where I ended up and what the end result was like. And I think that's why, and I told Chloe, we were FaceTime a few weeks ago, like that's why I'm struggling with it because I'm not satisfied. Like I should be, and I am proud that I fought through and I like showed people why am I crying? Like I showed people that like an injury doesn't have to like make decisions for you. But like soccer terms of things, like I'm not satisfied. And I
Yeah,
can't change it now. So I just have to kind of like deal with the new reality and figure out other ways I can make an impact and other ways I can still like find myself, I guess.
yeah. I think it's hard. I think we all I mean, we going into college, we thought that we were gonna be the all-stars. We thought that we were gonna play and have this amazing career at Notre Dame, and that being a big name school, I mean, that's part of the reason why we went. And so I think it's hard to go from that, where you didn't really get your opportunity to show who you were as a soccer player, and then go to another school and yes, have an opportunity to show, but it's not the level you know you can play at and the level you deserve to play at. But and I don't want to sound so lame and I don't know, just overly I mean, we got the cards we were dealt and we did as much as we could with the cards we were dealt with. Yes, do we deserve probably more? Absolutely. Do you deserve to go off on top of that? The biggest mountain of all time? Absolutely. But that's just not that's not our reality. And I'm so sorry that that's the case. But you did amazing things. You did amazing things at Notre Dame that like were outside of soccer. I mean, you started this podcast. It's an amazing thing. So you found your purpose in other ways. And yeah, maybe soccer didn't work, but you made a massive impact at Notre Dame, whether it was on the soccer field or not. I know for a fact you made a massive impact on the team you were just on, the field you were just playing on. At least you finished your career standing,
Well,
you know?
I wanna back it up a little bit because, like, I feel like I've said this a lot, like, the whole, like, being on a team and consistently knowing that there's no chance of you getting healthy and playing. Like, I know I can say this till I'm blue in the face, but for some people who quite don't understand that, I know I'm talking to someone right here who understands it, and that just, like, beats you down. It beats you down. So, like, anytime that somebody can just, like, and I've talked about this before, the difference between sympathize and empathize, like, if you don't know what I'm going through, you can sympathize for me. Chloe can empathize for me. She knows what I went through. She's gone through the same thing. And, like, all sometimes it takes is for someone to sympathize for you, with you, and just make you feel like what you're doing still matters. Like, showing up and being a good teammate is harder than showing up and just getting to go play soccer, I promise you. I know, like, running sucks, blah, 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 but you're doing it and you don't have to think about anything else. When you're hurt and you know that you can't play and you're not going to play and you have to show up and you have to be reminded of that you're not gonna play, being around it, but you don't wanna not be a part of it, it's really hard. So just, like, if you see somebody going through that similar situation, please just sympathize with them. Like, that's all it takes to make it just a little bit easier.
Yeah, and even just validate our feelings. I think, like, even just like, hey, I know you're going through it. I want to let you know that I'm here for you. Like, even that stuff, it, I don't think people understand how important those little comments are. And just knowing that, having that support from maybe people that you don't necessarily lean on as much as others, it helps. It helps you get through the day. And that's all you can really do. I mean, I remember I I take this now with me in all aspects of my life, but Bailey was always like, "We gotta celebrate the little wins." Like, we gotta celebrate as much as we can because there's so much negativity in our life and in our brain that, like, "Oh my god, I don't know, what's something little? You just got a surgery in your ACL surgery, and you're able to straighten your leg, like, to 0. Like, that's huge. Or you're able to, like, run on the Alter G, whatever, for 5 more minutes than you did yesterday. That's awesome. Like, that's how you have to get through stuff because it's so hard. And it's so hard on your body, it's so hard on your mental health that it's you gotta fake it till you make it. I keep saying that, but it's like, try your best to not think of the negative aspects and celebrate those little tiny wins and be appreciative of where you are and even just like that you have a roof over your head. That's a little tiny win of the day that you could be so grateful for, that's outside of soccer, that can maybe just boost your attitude a little more or just get you through the day, like get you through the day. There's someone that loves me that I love a lot, and when I'm not feeling it, just like lean on that, lean on those little wins. And so I don't know. It's a journey, girl. Well,
Um,
how many days are you out?
I mean, we were done in early November, I think. But like as happy and as proud of I am of getting back out there and finishing,
You
it
don't
just
maybe understand the purpose. It didn't fulfill you. It did not fulfill you. But
it
I think
didn't.
that's because of other reasons, just not like physically playing soccer.
Yeah,
I think there were things that you didn't like or enjoy that outside of the physical game, maybe not outside of the team, but that you just didn't like. And I think you understood what you wanted. You've been in that situation for so long that it didn't meet your standards,
I mean,
which is fair, I think, with everything that you explained and gone through.
I say this all the time, but like, let me ask you, if you could go back, snap your finger, you never got hurt, would you do it?
I don't know. I mean, obviously we all want that. Obviously we all want that perfect, starting freshman year, playing all 4 years, like being the big dog on campus. I think we all wanted that. That's what we all wanted. But I feel like I've grown a lot in these last 2.5 years, and my identity has changed a ton, and my outlook on life has changed so much going through that, that I don't know if I would have this mindset on life. I would I would I would have a different mindset on life, and I think as much as adversity knocks you down, it makes you stronger and gives you good values, I think. It reminds you of what's important
Mhm.
in life. So, I think I think no, which I feel like is always the answer. It's always like, "No, I wouldn't change anything for the world, like, this is what," but, like, I think just adversity makes you stronger, and I feel a lot stronger now than I was, and probably that I would be without going through it, honestly.
Yeah.
What about you?
No, I wouldn't change it. But I think like I've accepted like I'm so grateful for everything that's came from my injury, like the lessons I've learned, the people I've met, the things I've done. But like you said, like how can you not stop and think like, oh, the other option would have been nice. And like I think that's just the nature of being a human being. But I also think that my injury gave me the perspective of seeing that decision and knowing that it wouldn't be the best one for me.
Mhm,
Like I'm comfortable. And I think that's kinda, like, what I wanted to hint at is, like, I'm comfortable with where my injury left me. Like, I'm not like, selling myself short, like, I'm not excited that this is what happened to me, but, like, I'm comfortable with it, and I've handled
mhm,
it. But I think on the other end of that, like, if you're someone who's going through, like, a career-ending injury, and you can see from Chloe and I, it looks like different things, like medically retiring, just kinda sucking it up and getting through it. Whatever that looks like for you, like, being okay with yourself going through the emotions that you're going through, but also, like, being okay that you want something different. Like, you don't have to accept it and just be fine with it for the rest of your life. You're allowed to want more for yourself. You're allowed to, like, want things to be different. Like, that is okay, and I think a lot of times that perspective was shunned from us, and that is why I struggled with it so much because I felt like I had to be ecstatic for being hurt. And, like, yeah,
mhm,
I turned it into great things, but that doesn't mean I'm, like, happy that, like, I didn't ever get to play, and I'm not happy that I was the only one who didn't play on senior day, like, that's not something I'm happy about, but, like, being injured gave me the perspective to be comfortable with it and accept it and help teach others from it and move past it, but I just wanted to throw that in there because that doesn't mean you have to be, like, satisfied, which is kind of the point where I'm at right now.
I think we both said this in different ways, but you just were using the word comfortable. Like, obviously, we're both not super happy about our career, our soccer careers, and how they went, but you don't need to be happy about it, especially if you're in a scenario like us. I'm grateful that I'm not like super upset about how everything, like right now I'm content. Right now you're comfortable. Like we understand our career, obviously, and that's what it's gonna take for us to like not like live with it, I guess. Like that's just what it's gonna take. You don't have to be happy with how things went. But as long as you're okay with how things went and you're not upset at something, upset at someone or maybe something that happened, like holding that with you is not gonna help you in any way. Like, no, you don't need to be happy, but as long as you're as long as you're able to live with and content and happy with what happened, I mean, maybe that's just all you can ask for at this point
Yeah.
and move forward. And then your journey starts of finding who you are, who you really are, because soccer shouldn't have been our identities.
Yeah.
Yes, it consumed our entire life, but that's not who we are. So finding out who you are without any external, like not saying that you're a soccer player, which is it's what you did. It's not who you are. So figuring that out is the next step, and it's fun. It's fun getting in touch with yourself and and finding out who you are.
Mhm.
But it takes time, and you never really find out who you are. You change dramatically over a year. So just understanding your values, what matters to you, what you like to do, what you enjoy doing, what you don't enjoy doing, and then you just build on from there.
So I want to, before I get some tangibles from you, because you've been living this, I'm kind of curious. I want to speak lastly about the whole accepting period. That's like, I feel like where I'm at now. And I just think like the first step to a big change in your life is accepting it and like being internally okay with it. And I think that's just obviously that's what I'm going through. So that's what I'm going to say I struggle with the most. But for me, it's just how did you come to peace with it? Like, I know it's not something you can change. Like, either eligibility runs out, your body's done. Like, you can't change it. Like, there's a lot of things in the world you can change, but one thing you can't change is a sport being stripped away from you when it's actually done and stripped from you. And I'm just really struggling with that mentality. Like, how did you finally realize, like, okay, this is my new reality and I need to be okay with it. I need to really figure out what I'm gonna do with my life.
I
Or
think my
did you
scenario is the
not? Like, I don't know,
I
like,
just I think my scenario is different than yours because as I mentioned before, I hated my life going to practice. I did not want to go. So I think that in some aspects my mental health was a lot better
yeah,
because maybe I wasn't dealing with um, some of the people that I didn't like dealing with or putting my body through that. I think I it was a positive thing for me. Was losing soccer was difficult, but not playing in the scenario I was in, like it was a better scenario for me not playing than playing for me. So I think it was easier for me to accept just because like I couldn't transfer. Like I could not transfer. I didn't have any film since like sophomore year of high school. My options were very limited, right? So I think throughout those 2 years in college especially, I think my love for soccer declined. My want my want to keep going declined, you know? So I think even before I retired, that thought process had already started.
Yeah.
But for you, I would say that it just, like, it's gonna take time, and you're still attached to the game, you're
Mhm.
coaching. You can still find your love in it without playing, and you can still be around it because you love soccer, that is what got you through everything, I think,
Mhm.
and obviously other aspects kept you going and kept you wanting to go, but I think that it just really takes time and finding something that you love, maybe not equally, but close. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think you have too many hobbies right now, and that's okay because 'cause you're in school, you're still doing it, and I think that you maybe need to prioritize, like, finding something that's outside of maybe, like, being on your computer, finding something that you can do that really brings you joy and maybe can take your mind off soccer. Because I just I'm gonna say it again, I think it just takes time for you to really accept your situation, but finding distractions to get you there that maybe will help you get closer to your identity as well, finding what you like and being selfish and making yourself a priority. I think that can help, and I think everyone has a different timeline. There's no timelines involved because every single person's different. Every single person's scenario is so much different. But you'll find it. I know for a fact you'll find it. You're going through it still right now, and it's fresh. It's a fresh wound, and it will scab up, and then it will go away.
I
Maybe
think
you'll have a little scar there, but the
I mean,
scar will make you stronger.
I'm living my husband, Nick, for those of you who don't know,
Mhm.
like, he went through the same thing me and Chloe did, like, he was hurt and hurt and hurt and never got to play, and I think, going through it, like, he'll admit he's still like, "What the heck am I doing with my life?" Like, he doesn't have a fulfilling purpose right now, and I mean, Chloe said it a million times, but, like, it's one of those things that only time can fix, and, like, as you were speaking, I was thinking about my senior year, that really freaking hard year. I was in denial, like, I thought I could still, like before I finally admitted that I needed to just, like, sit on the sidelines, I was in such denial, I, like, thought I was gonna make this crazy comeback, and I remember there was one moment where Rachel so part of my, like, side effects of my injury, I guess, I, like, wouldn't sleep because my legs ache so bad, and I remember there was one time where Rachel was like, "Bill's like, what are you doing? Like, I want you to be able to have kids one day and get up and, like, be with your kids at night." And I was just like that hit me, and that was, like, kind of the beginning of accepting it, but I feel like denial I know we didn't really bring that up, but that is, like, the biggest barrier I had to accepting, like, soccer being done, like, I know I went on and played it, like, again, but I knew, like, in my head that, like, that was more for, like, fun and fulfillment, but I don't know, the denial piece was something that like, for you, you made a decision, you were thinking about it, but then it was kinda like a 48-hour turnaround, you know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, and I didn't know if that was, like, totally an emotional decision or not at all, like, it was an emotional time,
Yeah.
and I think you need to for me, it was an emotional decision, obviously, I'd been thinking about it for a while, and it was hard, but I'm grateful that I did it, and I never really saw it as quitting
Mhm,
because I know Bailey said that earlier, but just you're given one body
mhm,
to live your life in, and everyone's career ends at some point. Every single athlete's career ends at some point, whether it's after high school, whether it's when you're 40 and whatever. So I think that's important to keep in mind. Like every single person is going to experience it in a different way. Like imagine retiring at 40 and playing for what if you start at 34 years of your life. 34. Like we haven't even been alive for that long. So that to me would be absolutely crazy. Like that would be so hard.
Tom Brady just
Just
retired officially.
exactly. And he tried to retire and couldn't. He
Mhm,
tried to retire and couldn't. I'm sure it was hard, and I'm sure he didn't know what to do with himself without the sport, and drove him crazy, but everyone has to go through it, and so it's like, what can you do? What can you do for yourself to get through it? And it's gonna suck so bad, but you have so much more of your life. Like, this is gonna be such a small part of not a small part of your life, but just time-wise, it's not gonna be like, right now in this moment, it was your entire life, but 10 years in the future, it's not gonna be. 20 years in the future, it's not gonna be. It's gonna be a little snippet, and we're gonna be so grateful for it, but it's just gonna be part of our life, and not everyone can say that they got recruited to play at Notre Dame, let alone go there,
mhm,
right? Play at a top school in the country. Like you were a top recruit. I think that's those little wins that, like, yeah, I was a pretty amazing, incredible soccer player, but that's it, and that's okay. That's
mhm,
okay. You still have an awesome career. You have other things and aspirations that you can look forward to in the future
mhm. Wise words.
that that will be your identity. Like I think Stronger Scars
Mhm.
is an amazing platform that is your identity. Stronger Scars by Bailey Cartwright Cohen.
Alright. No,
But you know,
I do I hope you know how, like, I know I'm older and, like, we're on different paths in our lives, but, like, I do look up to you for what you've been through and how you've handled it. Because honestly, like, you've handled it miraculously, and, like, you should be
well,
really.
I appreciate it, and I think that you know more than anyone that there's a face to be put on to the public, and then there's what goes on behind closed doors, and then there's what goes on in your brain. And so,
I like that.
yeah, yes, maybe it appeared that it was all amazing, fine, dandy, everything went well. I think you saw a lot of the other side of that, and then there was 100% of what was going on in my brain that probably didn't even know.
Mhm,
So there's layers, and talking to you, being there in that middle section with me, helped the brain side, the negative brain side that I was going through, and just having support. I mean, obviously your family is a big support of you. Obviously, you have a lot of people around you that are going to get you through this. It's okay to ask for help.
mhm,
Um, it's okay to not be okay. I think that's Stronger Scars like guideline mission statement. It's okay to not be okay. So, and time heals.
it does. Anyways, thank you, Chloe. Like, honestly, like, hearing you talk about, like, how where you are now, like how long it's taken you, it kind of just like eases my emotions a little. I texted you this morning. I was like, I'm just having like a very emotional day. I feel like sometimes I just get in that mood where like literally everything makes me cry. Like thinking about Willow turning 3 makes me cry. But I've always just been a firm believer of like letting your emotions emotion and things will get better then. Um, but yeah, I mean, I know I'm only gonna go up from here. Like I've watched you go up. Like I wasn't there for your senior year, but I know that it was such a peaceful time for you. And I don't know. I'm excited and I feel like in summary, like there's no way to avoid an identity crisis when your sport's over. You can tell me there is, you can tell me you were fine with it, but I know like there's no way to avoid it. And I think just let yourself go through it and time. Like Chloe said, like time, that's all
Yeah,
you can have on your side.
and be easy on yourself.
Mhm.
It's not like everything you wanna do is okay. Everything you're going through is okay, and don't be too hard on yourself because that's you're the biggest critic of yourself, and you're the biggest naysayer of yourself. So, be nice and kind because it's a hard time, and we'll get through it. Thank you. Love you. Miss you.